Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, fellow engineers. The debate, as you've heard, the motion that has been tabled is, should Trinidad and Tobago invest in renewable energy for electricity generation? And to conduct the debate, we have two ladies who are students at the University of West Indies in mechanical engineering. For is Sridevi Sahadeo, and against the motion is Leander Bidaisi. Would you like to come up to the stage, please? Now, before we commence with the debate itself, we would like to conduct an audience polling, and Dr. Chris Maharaj and Mr. Deepak Lal will take the vote. So, all those in favor of the motion, could you please raise your hands? This is before the debate. Those who are for Trinidad and Tobago investing in renewable energy for electricity generation. And could you please raise your hands, all those who are against the motion? It was quick. Okay, in that case, we'll now begin the debate with the first case for the motion, and that will be Sridevi Sahadeo.
Okay, good evening to all. My name is Sridevi Sahadeo, and I am the affirmative on the issue we are debating today. Should Trinidad and Tobago begin investing in renewable energy generation? Now, an investment is defined as something that you buy now because it will be worth more in the future. And that's the point I'd like to make when we start today. Yes, we have to begin investing now. Now, Trinidad and Tobago has some options for renewable resources. So we have a diverse stream that we can go to so as to not just be dependent on our fossil fuels, because we know they will run out. So other first world nations have already begun. We saw some of them in the past 2 days. We know that there are other Caribbean countries who have begun. So what are we waiting for? You know, we want to be on top of the game also. So we have to try and keep up and, keep in gear. The endeavor to convert homes to solar or wind, as we have as options, will take a considerable amount of time. So we should start now to invest, because we know this will take a long time. We know that we need a lot of persons to hear what we have to say. We have to train a lot of persons. So beginning, this first small step is something that we should do, and we should do it now.
Thank you. The first
Energy is not just a physical system, it's a social and political system. Majority of Trinbagonians lack education, awareness, and training on this topic of renewable energy and how it can be implemented. Actually, a pilot project on using solar panels to run a standard 2-bedroom household in Trinidad failed due to improper installation. This also adds to the fact that there needs a really large capital investment to start this in Trinidad and Tobago, because you not only have to invest on equipment, you also have to invest in the people and training and so on to move forward.
Thank you. Now, second case for the motion, Sridevi.
Okay, I too agree that we need to start, well, not just having more incentives, but to also enforce them, because there are some in place. But Trinidad specifically also is special compared to other Caribbean islands with respect to the cost of energy, because it's about, I believe, US 3 cents per kilowatt hour. But according to resource to production ratios, there are only about 58 years of natural gas supplies left. And that's about 1 generation. So the fact of the matter is it will run out. So we have to be prepared for the day that happens. And you can't just jump into something. You want to be transitioned into it. So if we start now, we can ease bit by bit. Well, we may not be a large place, but we know everything will take time. So just simply beginning in a small area or doing data polls and starting up, that's what we should be focusing on now, so that by the next 58 years, we will be prepared to take over when we don't have another option and cost goes up even more, because if all the fossil fuels run out, we won't have a choice. And when we don't have a choice, they will realize and they will also increase the price of conversion debt. So wouldn't you rather invest now as opposed to paying that hefty price then when we don't have a choice?
And the second case against the motion, Leander.
Okay, very well said, Sridevi. I get your point. But in order to integrate these new renewable energy technologies into our system, there are a lot of changes that need to be done on the whole of Trinidad and Tobago, right? To start with, renewable energy is intermittent, meaning that due to certain weather conditions, the supply may be decreased over a certain amount of time. Like, for example, during the rainy season, there will be a decrease in solar energy. There are 2 ways to combat this, which may be to reduce the overall energy consumption in Trinidad and Tobago, or to install more power generation plants. Now, the latter, which is to install more power generation plants, means that more cost, there's more money needs to be pumped into the system to actually get it running and maintain it as well. Because maintaining a renewable energy plant is really expensive as well. On the other hand, which is to reduce overall energy consumption of Trinidad and Tobago, that means that companies and buildings and homeowners will have to invest in more energy-saving appliances and change their whole thinking of how they run their business and their households and their constructions. But even though it is really good practice, existing companies and buildings and stuff may not want to implement it as
Thank you, Leander. I must stop you there. Now the third case for the motion, Sridevi.
Okay, you're right. Renewable energy, specifically solar, it costs about 25 to 45 US cents to produce a solar kilowatt hour, as opposed to how cheap non-renewable resources are. But we also need some time to begin the research and development to find ways that would make solar or wind suitable for Trinidad and Tobago, so that the stuff like weather conditions or extended cloud cover doesn't affect us as much. Now, Charles Briggs said at a Global Engineering Debate conference in London last year that Australia, if you put a solar panel on every roof and every home in Australia, that it will produce the same amount of energy that is required to run the entire country for a year in just 2 days. The average number of sunshine hours for Australia and Trinidad is about the same. I'm not saying to jump straight into something like that because that's a feat. But I mean, we can start. You know, we can take a page out of Dr. Ross's book from yesterday and use both natural gas and the renewable energy. I'm just saying that we should begin and, you know, just try, go around, educate everyone and raise the awareness necessary to make this happen.
Now the third case against the motion, Leander.
Trinidad and Tobago, as we know, has a very rich ecosystem, and one of our most attractive attractions for tourists are our many species of birds and flora. To implement these new technologies, large amount of space or land area is needed. It is estimated that solar panels produce energy at a rate of 4 acres per megawatt, and the electrical consumption of Trinidad is around 7.6 billion kilowatts per hour. Therefore, a lot of land space is needed if you want to implement solar panels, which may take away from like forestry and our plants and whatnot. Also, if we are considering windmills, there's also the factor to consider, which is the birds mortality rate, which could also affect our tourism industry.
Thank you. Now we'd like to hear closing comments for the motion. Sridevi?
Okay, well, we can do as one of the other members had stated and put the solar panels as in the car parks of our airports or on our government buildings. And we know right now, like our booth setup, Novus, and there are about 5 other suppliers who are willing to do solar or wind options. So there are people there for that. And it's an option available if you don't want to do it. If the country isn't willing to do it yet, you can do on your own as a personal step. So it's not just a big jump that everyone can take, that you have to wait for your business to decide that they want to convert. You can convert at home and generate your own electricity. And that is a feat. We need to have a replenishable supply because it will run out. And if we wait on the other person, where are you going to get, you know? So it's our duty to our future generations to start the process. And that's what I'd like to just close off by saying, that we shouldn't wait until all the trees in the forest are cut down before we start planting new ones. Thank you.
Thank you. And closing comments against the motion, Leander?
As I conclude, I would like to say that renewable energy technology is very new to our country, and there are many difficulties we need to overcome in order to implement it on a small and large scale as well. We need to take into consideration the initial capital investment to get it starting and also to have it continue running. And we also need to think about our ecosystem and our new nature and our tourism industry. So therefore, in conclusion, I would like to say that if these issues cannot be resolved, then therefore it's not wise to start investing in renewable energy in Trinidad and Tobago at this present moment if we cannot resolve those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Leander. Now I would like to open up questions to the floor from the floor. What I would like are questions from the floor, and initially I would like the debaters to address or field the questions first, and then it's open to members of the audience also to provide their answers. So answers can come from both the debaters and from the floor for each question. So I open it up now to anyone who would like to ask questions.
Francis Lam-Young. With respect to using renewable energy, our peak is in the night. So how are we going to depend on renewable energy for night use? I know storage is the use of batteries, but I could just imagine in about 5 years when you have to replace your batteries, how would we dispose of these batteries in an environmentally sound way?
Well, thank you. With respect to the night issues, well, that was one of the reasons that we wanted to start the research and development for alternative solutions. Of course, this is something that, is relatively common. Well, solar in the night. So one of the options we could try is to switch to wind energy, because we know, well, and place them closer to the coast where we know the sea blows inward towards the land at that hour. So it may not be enough, but we know that there are specific locations that we can put wind turbines to make it possible. It may affect the bird mortality rate, but at this point it's more likely to be a possibility for the night solution. With respect to the batteries, I think that the maintenance of the solar panels are something that, well, maybe Novus can explain further on, because I'm not sure what the cost of that would be. Sorry.
Thank you. Do you have any response to that, Leander? Does anybody else in the audience have a response to the question?
Actually, I have a different question. I don't have a response.
I'm sorry, I didn't...
No, I said I have a different question. I don't have a response.
So there are no responses from the audience? Yes, one.
Richard Ross. One of these solutions is a combined cycle systems where the idea is to reduce energy consumption from renewables, from fossil, rather than eliminate it at this point in time. So you have combined systems where in times where you don't have maybe wind or you don't have solar, you use the conventional system, and at other times you use the renewable energy resources.
Thank you. Any more responses to that initial question? Yes.
My name is Luis. I'm an architect. It's a long-term thing to do, but to connect a renewable system with the grid, in this case the solar system, it's a good solution. Because connecting to the grid, it means the electricity that runs the country can also get proved. You don't produce a lot of energy, you don't consume, you help with the other sources.
Thank you. Another response? Yes.
Jacinto Jacob again. Just wanted to speak about storage a little bit more. I think in Trinidad, you have a huge opportunity here and yet huge demand. Because you have a huge demand, it means that you have storage inherent in the fuel that you don't burn. So it is a long way off before you get to the place where you need storage because of the amount of demand that you have right now. All of the solar energy below that demand level is going to be used immediately. And all that energy that you don't burn is stored in the fuel that's left for future generations to burn. So you don't have to worry about batteries too much. And batteries are evolving. And by the time you need that batteries, the technology might allow it to be like a 25-year-old battery that can store it in a nice compact area. So don't worry about storage at this stage. Think about the storage in the fuel itself and the chemical energy.
Thank you. We'll stop there with the responses. And okay.
Just have a comment.
Yes. Go ahead.
We have been trying renewable energy for a long time. We use it to charge our phones and small things. We have not reached to a situation to actually power air conditioning systems in the home. Right? Now, in Trinidad, we have a huge demand of power. And most of the power is actually used by the factories that we run three-phase induction motors. So if the companies and chemical plants can start there with renewable energy, then we could see a way forward for generating electricity in renewable form.
Thank you. We'll stop there with responses for that question. Now we'll take the next question.
More than 40 years ago when I was at UWI, Professor Ken Julian made the comment that Trinidad should research and develop renewable energy for other Caribbean countries since we will likely not need it ourselves. I would like to hear each of you give your thoughts on that statement. So I'll repeat the statement.
Yeah, please.
We should research and develop, we Trinidad and Tobago should research and develop renewables for other Caribbean countries since we are very unlikely to need it ourselves.
Thank you. Just my opinion, but what he meant by that statement would be the mentality of the people, because I think he understands from at that point in time that we were really dependent on fossil fuels, and our mentality would not have changed from that until maybe it's too late. So that's just my opinion on what I think he meant by that statement.
My opinion of that is basically why we need to start. That's the kind of mentality that is the reason that we haven't begun yet on a larger scale. We are so dependable, we think that it'll last forever. And the point is, it'll last our life, so we don't have to worry about it. Now, we will have children, they will have children, and they will have children. So someone has to worry about it. I mean, they cannot start the generation with something that they didn't learn about. And how can someone else learn about something if no one is there to teach them about it? So what we have to do is do our own research now, because all the islands are different. I mean, yes, we have the same climate, but the geography and the landscape is different, the size is different. We don't have as much space on some as on others. So while we should maybe help, as opposed to doing research and development, well, the other Caribbean islands have already begun their own, so I think that we should begin our own now also.
Thank you. Now I'll take responses to the question from the audience. Anyone?
Yeah, I think it's a very important quote that Dr. Sam made, and I think it is in sync with what Dr. King presented yesterday as well. I believe that what it was trying to underscore was the business opportunity for engineers to not just sit back here and keep our engineers in what we know, which is oil and gas, or the majority of them, but that we should also be looking to explore the opportunities as engineers to develop the technology based on the needs and wants of the other Caribbean countries. So when Jusino and Grendek presented their project, if we were taking the advice from Professor Julian before, we would have probably already have dealt with some of the pains that they are going through, and we would have been able to help them.
Thank you. Any more responses? Any more questions from the audience? Thank you. Then that concludes the debate, and at this point we'll take another count of those who vote in favor of the motion. Please raise your hands. And those who are not in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the debate, and I thank you for your participation and interaction. I now hand you over to Dr. Chris Maharaj, who will be, Deepak Lal, who will be presenting tokens. The first, Sridevi. Thank you. And against the motion, Leander. Thank you.